Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at JessinoTweets and at SheKnowsArsenal. Welcome to another episode of Transfer Talk, going over the most recent Arsenal news and transfer news during this January transfer window. Make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel, and let's get into it. NS Sports, thank you so much for your super chat. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the happy birthday wishes. I really do appreciate that. And the super chat. Afsar says, yo, what's up? Let's see. What are you guys saying? Mr. Damie says, greetings from Australia. Terrence Tibbs says, did we miss a trick not signing Felix to prioritize the Mudryk deal? I don't think so. I think a lot of my conversations or a lot of my feelings around Felix was not so much that we had to get Felix. Like, it was more just we can't get nobody. And so Arsenal, they have prioritized a player that they feel like is going to be really special in the future, but can also do something for us in the short term. And so I know that we all watched Felix have a really good debut, albeit he got sent off. But I think that's just mostly because we have not seen mykhaylo Mudryk play for us yet. And so I think a lot of those feelings will go away, if Mudryk does a good job. Let's see. So let's chitty chat about what's gone on this morning. And this also came out, like some of these reports had come out last night. I remember Rudy Galletti, who was kind of hit and miss, if I'm honest. Like he was saying all summer that we were bringing in Tielemans and it never happened. But he was the original person that put out the report yesterday about Mudryk. The talks between Arsenal and Shaktar entering the final stage. Both clubs agreed on the overall amount of the transfer, around 85 million euros, or 90 million euros. Now they're discussing the balance, fixed and add-ons. The next few days will be decisive in this step. And we've been kind of like talking about this for a minute, though. Like, I think Ben Jacobs was one of the first people to really kind of talk about what's actually the holdup in all of this. It's not really about, like, the overall fee is important, but it's the breakdown of that fee and what's going to be guaranteed and what's going to be not. And I think originally Shaktar did want a lot more upfront and a lot more guaranteed. And with Arsenal coming up to Shakhtar's demands, we'll talk about a little bit more about what that is. The add-ons, I think, the add-ons are going to be quite big, but they're going to be less attainable. So, like, an example of that would be, okay, so the guaranteed fee is going to be 60 million, but the 20 million in add-ons are going to be like if he's a Ballon d'Or winner, in the same year that we win the, something like that. And so I think that that's a good way of doing things and negotiating is we'll give you more upfront, but the add-ons are going to be less attainable. You know what I mean? And so that's pretty much what it seems like. We're at the end game now with Mudryk. And I think a lot of Arsenal fans wanted to see this probably happen a lot sooner. But we're talking about a player that's going to be coming in for a record fee. No matter how you slice it, he's going to cost more than Nicola Pepe. And so I do think that, like, those types of signings do take a lot longer to negotiate than the odd loan or something like that. Triple C says 70 million euros guaranteed is a bit insane, though. It's only insane if he doesn't end up being the player that Arsenal think he's going to be. And I think Arsenal's recent track record in transfers kind of makes me feel a lot less worried about bringing in somebody with this level of a fee. Do you know what I mean? Now, I think Arsenal fans have got to, get to the point where we realize that this is not a signing. Like, of course, Mudryk is for now. Like, he's somebody that's going to have to help us in the short term and show his value somewhat in the short term. But the 70 million versus, he's probably worth about 40 million at the moment. So the 30 million extra is with the idea that he's going to become something special. And so you're paying for potential over what he's really worth. And so it's one of those where that's just how things happen now. To get players from these clubs like Benfica, like Shaktar early on, before, they really, catch on. You have to pay the price. And it's a little bit of a risk, but if you have good recruitment and a good talent ID within your club, you shouldn't be that worried. And I know that a lot of Arsenal fans have some PTSD from Pepe, and there's been a lot made of, the fees and the return of the fees from Darwin Nunez and Antony. But quite frankly, if you take away your Arsenal bias, and look at those two players and what they've done so far, you can say that, like, if we got 5 goals, from Mudryk in 11 appearances this season, we'd probably be happy. You know, I don't know what Darwin Nunez has so far, but I know he has at least 7 goals. And so, and they came for like record fees, young players that are kind of relatively unproven but coming to a big league for the first time. And so I can only hope that they have, Mudryk would have the same kind of impact for Arsenal. If that's how they start out and they're rough around the edges, what will they be when they actually smooth those edges out? And I think, of course, like, there's always a risk involved, but we've spoken about this before. When it came to Pepe, was not even wanted by the manager, but Arteta has spoken to Mudryk. Mudryk is desperate to come to Arsenal. A lot of people outside of Arsenal have spoken about the talent that this guy is. And so there's a lot of things going in his favor that I do think can make Arsenal fans feel excited, but there's always a risk involved, and it's just the reality of playing the game. Now, we could go the rest of, forever and only bring in players that, that have very little risk involved, 20, 30 million pound players. Let's say you were to bring in somebody like Marcus Thuram, or who else would be about that amount? I don't know. Let's just use him as an example. In the short term, or like a Zaha or something like that. In the short term, they'd help us and they'd be good players because they're talented. But there's the ceiling is what it is. We can see how good these players are going to be or how good they are. Like, Zaha is as good as he's going to be. And Marcus Thuram is somebody that is probably going to be a good player, but never a great player. That's my feeling on him. You know what I mean? And so I do think that sometimes you have to push the boat out for special talent. Mudryk has speed, that very little players in the world have. Very little players have. And so it's one of those where he has the speed, he has the talent, the technical ability, the eye for goal, those types of things. And if that can be harnessed and improved upon, we'll have a really, really good player. And so I just think, it's something to take note of, is that is Arsenal supposed to be just bringing in players that are just good? Or do Arsenal need to be bringing in players that could potentially be great? I think we need to bring in players that are potentially great, not just players to fill the numbers, because it makes us feel comfy and like, oh, they're good enough, but they didn't cost us a lot. So if it fails, it does this. It's not that's not what I think we should be doing. So yeah, what else do you guys say? Jet Next Door says Marcus Thuram is a donkey. Honestly, he's just big. At Pro says they've been talking every day. With that in mind, they should have agreed on the final offer. Well, no, not necessarily. I do think that speaking every day and doesn't necessarily mean that the deal is going to move forward exponentially every single day. And so I do think that on the 13th of January, let's say this deal gets done on like Monday or something like that, 15 days to negotiate a deal for a top young talent it's going to cost us 85 million or something like that. That's not that long. And if it was a summer transfer window, we would think that deal was done quickly. But because it's January and it's only a month, it's like, why didn't it happen quick enough? And I do wish it was done quick enough, but I know that sometimes you don't always get what you want. So let's see. Shin says, if Shakhtar reject this bid, Edu should abandon this deal. Edu shouldn't wasting time on this deal, go get Leroy Sané. Well, I don't even know if that's realistic, to be honest. But let's just see what people are saying about this in terms of, because I think there's a lot of people that are like, if they reject this bid, we're beyond the rejecting the bid part of the deal. We're in the tying up the loose ends in terms of add-ons. This deal is pretty much like done. And so we're not waiting to see if they're going to reject us or not. It's fine tuning. That's what I'm gathering. Nobody has really said anything different. And Arsenal have been confident on this for the entire time. Charles Watt says Mudryk talks advancing now. A full agreement is closer than it ever has been. Kaya as well. AFC are closing in on a deal for mykhaylo Mudryk. Talks progressing positively with Shaktar, and the final details are being ironed out. Sam JD, and he was one of the first people this morning that I saw report on this, said Arsenal and Shaktar are now close to agreeing a deal for mykhaylo Mudryk. Talks are focused on the structuring of the fee, the initial payment, and probability proportion of add-ons, which is kind of what we talked about earlier. The total deal could be 75 million to 80 million pounds, including add-ons. So again, a record fee for an Arsenal player. That's what it's going to be. Now, another really important part about this that I think people are not really taking note of is the fact that Mudryk, even though he's going to be probably our record fee, his wages are going to be around 40 million pounds per week. And so that makes it a lot more like, okay, because if you're bringing in like with Pepe started off on like 120,000 pounds per week. So there wasn't really anywhere to go beyond that. With Mudryk starting off at 40 million, I do think that eases the blow a little bit. And again, these performance related add-ons from an Arsenal perspective will be less attainable because they have come up on the guaranteed fee. And that's how negotiating kind of works. For Shaktar want more guaranteed, so we give them a little bit more guaranteed, but we say, okay, the add-ons are not going to be just if he scores 10 goals in the league. It's going to be if he helps us if we win the league and he's a Ballon d'Or winner at the same time, you'll get this guaranteed amount. And so, like Simon Collins has said, Arsenal indicated a willingness to part with as much as 60 million up front, 60 million pounds. Now, from people outside of Arsenal, if and when, because I'm sure this deal is going to get done, when this deal gets done, what people will do is they'll, every single time they report the fee, it'll be 100 million euros, because when you take it from euros to pounds, it starts to look worse. Then you put the add-ons and then it's like 100 million euro, blah, 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 whatever. But it's the 60 million pounds up front. And I get that that's still scary for some Arsenal fans, but for me, that's kind of about what Arsenal were willing to pay anyway. They were around 40 million at first. They came up to 20. I think, remember you guys, we talked about that Arsenal are probably going to have to come up the 20. And then now it's about the add-ons. And so, yeah, it's still a big fee. Don't get me wrong, but people are going to report it as, oh, 100 million euro, young player, blah, 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 such a risk. But we know what it really is. It's 60 million pounds guaranteed, and then some probably pretty unattainable add-ons off of the back of that. Fabrizio Romano, this is an hour ago, said Arsenal's new bid for mykhaylo Mudryk is 70 million euros guaranteed fee. As revealed yesterday, understand bonuses are close to 25 million euros. Waiting for Shaktar. Arsenal are now discussing on add-on structure and how and when to activate them. So again, that's we're at the end game now. we're there. We're almost there. I know it's sorry you guys. You guys know I'm under the weather. Excuse me. So we're at the end. It's just about crossing the T's and dotting the I's. Amira says, good morning, Jess. If we get Here We Go today, it'll probably be the unluckiest Friday the 13th ever. I didn't even think about that. Thanks for putting it in my mind now. Mafia Boss says he's definitely a rare gem based on the YouTube clips I have watched. Social Join says still overpriced, but the market has been spoiled. Exactly. And so once we get that out of our head and we say, okay, the market has been spoiled and you're pretty much going to overspend or overpay for any player you're going to buy. Do we just move on from it? Because I do think that I am not going to be sitting around worried about the fee. I'm not. I mean, I'll talk about it with you guys. I do have my feelings on what's too expensive and what's not. But ultimately, I just want to see Arsenal win games. And I want to see Arsenal progress. And so I'm not going to be sitting around like I'm not the type of person that gets off on the idea that Arsenal have spent the least amount in the top six and all this kind of stuff. I think we need to spend what is required to get to where we want to go within reason and smart, but I don't necessarily feel like pushing the boat out for a highly talented player that could potentially become whatever is wrong. I'm not going to be sitting there thinking about it if he hits the ground running. Do you know what I mean? Shin says Theo Walcott 2.0, he better perform like Neymar or Mbappe. Remember all his fans hyping him up likes a second coming. Mbappe, otherwise he'll be crucified by Arsenal fans. Um, so let's take this like piece by piece. So Theo Walcott 2.0, the difference between Mudryk and Theo Walcott is that Theo Walcott didn't have any technical ability. I think he was pretty much like a very, very scary talent because of how fast he was and how direct he was. But Mudryk does have a little bit more finesse about his game. He better perform like Neymar or Mbappe. I don't think necessarily he has to be that day one. And we've spoken about this. Arsenal fans need to remember that this is a player coming from the Ukrainian league, and we have not paid for him to be Neymar and Mbappe today. And quite frankly, like he doesn't have to be Neymar and Mbappe ever. But for what we paid for him, I understand that there's going to be an expectation that he transforms this team and is the best player on the pitch right away, but it's going to take him time to adapt. He's coming from an inferior league and he's going to be playing in a new system, and we have to give him time. So my expectation of him is to contribute now. Do I expect him to be a travesty? No. I expect him to struggle a little bit, but I would expect Mudryk to get some goals in the Europa League and whatever competition. I expect him to get some goals, and Arsenal fans just need to give him the Saliba treatment. I think that's what I'm going to start calling it from here on out. How nice everybody has been about Saliba, whether he was playing well or terribly. I feel like you should do the same thing with Mudryk because you want him to be a really, really good player. You have to remember that, like, we've had players like Ben White have, adaptation just to coming to Arsenal. His first season, I think, was good, but he had some, some situations where he needed to like just, progress a little bit more, get used to what we're trying to do. This season, he's probably the best right back in the league, like on form. Gabriel, his first season was not great, and it took him some time. Mudryk will be no different, regardless of the fee. We're paying for the potential, not for him to be an 100 million euro player right now, and I think that's the key. Let's see. JJ said we should go for Rafinha instead since his club is willing to sell. Why? Why would we do that? Like, why would we do that? Why would we go in for Rafinha now? First of all, he's probably going to do what every other player does when they get to Barcelona and say that they want to fight for their spot. He's only been there for 6 months or so. Like, and why would we bring in Rafinha? Like, I don't really understand. Why would we? Is it because he'd be cheaper? Why are Arsenal fans so obsessed with bringing in cheap players? Loans, players that are, first of all, you get what you pay for sometimes. There's very few opportunities in the market where you buy a player that is probably worth double what we pay for them. We have one of them in our team named Odegaard, but everybody else, like, you're paying, sometimes you get what you pay for. And so sometimes I do think Arsenal fans are obsessed with only, like, we need to make sure that we get really cheap players so that there's not the pressure of that player having to be something special. And that's just not how it works. We've been very, very blessed to have our current front line cost us 6 million. Very, very blessed. We're in a very good position where Saka cost us nothing. Martinelli cost us barely anything, and Kedia cost us barely anything. But players like we can't live in that space forever. What are we afraid of? What are we afraid of? What are we actually afraid of here? Let's see. And this is also my thing as well. Like, once you decide you don't want to come to Arsenal for whatever reason, even if your lifelong dream was to go to Barcelona, if you decide you don't come to us, I don't want you anymore. And so he just has to live in the situation that he made. I think Rafinha is a really, really good player, by the way. That made a bad decision to go to Barcelona. But now that we're in for, and we also wanted Mudryk in the summer. Like, he's a long-term target and we're finally getting him, albeit for a high fee, but like, don't you guys want the special player or do you just want the good player? Like, what are we saying here? This is Arsenal. Matt G says, we need to manage our expectations. I'm reading some fans say that they're expecting 20 goals this season. Are you really? For real? Oh my goodness. Oh no. There's 275 of you guys in here right now. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel, but also get in the chat and let me know, what are your expectations of Mudryk when he comes in, because I'm sure he's going to come in. What are your actual expectations for him? Because if you're thinking he's going to get 20 goals this season, you're going to be so disappointed. Why would you think that? That's wild. Harry says, if he gets 5 goals, it's a good start, in my opinion. I agree. Let's see. The Brando says, I think we're used to the cheap Wenger ways. Then after spending on Pepe and he flopped, we are double scared of spending. I'll do an expectation poll. Give me 1 second before I get back to what you just said, because I think that that's really, really important and a good point. Let me just make this expectation poll. That's a really, really good idea. Let's see. Start poll. Expectations. 0 to 5 goals. Oh, let's say 0 to 5 GA. Let's just say that. 5 to 10 GA. And we'll do 10 to 15 GA. We'll just stop it there, because anything beyond that is just nonsense. So you guys can vote on the poll as well. But I think this is a really interesting point that you said. I think we're used to the cheap Wenger days. Let's start there. Okay. So here's how I think. I think Wenger did an excellent job doing a lot with a little. And I think he had his own part in us being very cheap, but at the same time, it was just the way things were back then, with the ownership structure, the lack of investment, and Arsenal always kind of being a Champions League team, and top 4, as we know, famously became a trophy for Arsenal because of that. So we did do a lot with a little. And so that's a separate thing that you could be kind of happy about, is that Wenger was really good at keeping us relevant and competitive with not very much, right? But in terms of what football is actually about, winning trophies, winning leagues, winning titles, we failed at that during that time. Won a couple of FA Cups, but really fell away. And towards the very end, we weren't even a Champions League team. We weren't fighting for titles. There were some times where we knew we were going to make top 4, but we weren't really actually fighting for a title. And so it was failure during that time in terms of what is actually required. Now, there are some people that feel like, well, we have to look at what the landscape was with Chelsea and how they changed the game. And then Manchester City came in and they made it unattainable and all this kind of stuff. But there were moments and times where I do think that we made decisions not to buy the talent that would get us closer to where we want to be. And like a big example of that for me would have been, 40 plus 1 for Luis Suarez. If you have Luis Suarez in your team at that point in time, we probably win a couple leagues on the bounce, because we had such a good team that we built with basically nothing. We built with our academy kids and some really, really good buys. I mean, that team was actually really, really good. We had Ozil, Santee, we had Wilshere and Ramsey. I think Walcott was still there. Oxlade-Chamberlain coming through. It was Koscielny and Pert. Like, we had a really, really good team that we made with nothing. But when it came down to the time to just push the boat out for the one player that would have definitely put us over the edge, we didn't do it. And so I think that we've done something quite similar now that is kind of a part of the fabric of the team. We use our academy, we do smart buys, we have great recruitment. But in the times where we were really good, we would do all those things and then spend the money on the big player. And it gets us over the line, or get a really talented player in midseason. Hey, you guys, I don't know what happened. My internet went out. I lost 100 of you guys out. Like, I'm so sorry. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel on the way out. I am gonna end the stream there because I'm not sure what's going on with the internet, but it literally just went out on me. I mean, we could stay, I mean, a little bit longer. I'm just so afraid to go out. You guys know how I feel about the internet going out, but yeah, you guys, it's not gonna work. But the last thing I'll say on this is just, you can't do the first part without doing the second part. So you have to buy the big players. Um, you know what I mean? And so I do think it's fine, and we just have to get over it. But I'm so sorry, you guys, that the internet went out just as the stream was probably getting good. This was supposed to be a short one anyway. So I'll go ahead and leave it there. And if anything happens, if we get a here we go, if we get, you know, like confirmation that the deal is done, we'll come back and chit chat about it more, and hopefully my internet will be better. But love you guys, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Sorry. Bye.